Hello friends, as part of my video lecture series, today I would like to explain the general exceptions under Indian Penal Code 1860 from sections 76 to 106. This video lecture is dedicated to M. Suresh Kumar Garu, my senior and guru, on the occasion of his birthday. Happy birthday, sir. Coming to the basic structure of Indian Penal Code 1860, in the part 1 of Indian Penal Code, in my video lecture, part 1, I explained the basic structure of Indian Penal Code from the introductory provisions, general exceptions, penal provisions, incomplete offences, complete offences. Under the complete offences, offences against the state, government, public, etc., the offences against the private persons, and so on. Now, in this video lecture, we are going to discuss the general exceptions. The general exceptions. Chapter 4 of Indian Penal Code 1860 describes the general exceptions from sections 76 to 106. These general exceptions are available against Chapter 16 and Chapter 17 of Indian Penal Code 1860. Chapter 16 deals with offences affecting the human body. Chapter 17 deals with offences against the property. One thing we need to remember that the general exceptions under Chapter 4 from section 76 to 106 are purely against Chapter 16 and Chapter 17. The offences affecting the human body and offences against the property can be protected with the general exceptions under Chapter 4 of Indian Penal Code. There are 13 exceptions enumerated under Chapter 4 of Indian Penal Code from sections 76 to 106. The 13 general exceptions are mistake of fact, judicial acts, accident, necessity or acts done to avoid greater harm, infancy, insanity, intoxication or drunkenness, consent, acts done in good faith, communication made in good faith, act done under compulsion or threat, acts causing slight harm or trifling acts, right of private defense. These are the 13 general exceptions enumerated under Chapter 4 of Indian Penal Code. Among these, the right of private defense is the lengthiest exception under Indian Penal Code. Sections 96 to 106 describe the right of private defense. Let us discuss the first one, that is a mistake of fact. The mistake of fact is described under section 76 and 79 of Indian Penal Code. Generally, mistake is a commission or omission of an act ignorantly or unintentionally causing injury or to damage to other persons. Ignorantly or unintentionally, there should be no intention to commit or omit a particular act that results in some injury or damage to other persons. Such commission or omission should be done by an ignorant act. The ignorance or unintention is the major ingredient of a mistake. This is the general meaning of the word mistake. Mistake is one of the defenses available to the accused to get exemption from the criminal liability, but it must not be due to desire or pre-arrangement. The conditions for the mistake are as follows. The act must be done by a person resulting in harm. The act must be done by a person in good faith. Person doing that act is bound by law to do that act. Person doing that act must believe himself bound by law. The belief must be the result of mistake of fact, not mistake of law. These are the conditions for a valid mistake of fact under sections 76 and 79 as the exemption from the criminal liability for the acts of a person. The first one is there must be some harm. There must be some harm. One person must do certain act that results in certain harm to other person. There should be some harm. Then such harm or such act should be done by the person in good faith with bona fide intention, not with malified intention. Next, the person doing that act is bound by law to do that act. It is specified under section 76. Person doing that act is justified by the law is specified under section 79. This is the only difference in between section 76 and 79. Under section 76, a person doing the act is bound by the law to do that act. As per the section 79, the person doing the act is bound or justified by law to do that act. Using certain illustrations and important cases, we can easily understand the difference. I will explain the difference between section 76 and section 79 in the next slide. Person doing that act must believe himself bound by law. The belief must be the result of mistake of fact, not mistake of law. Section 76 and section 79 depends upon a legal maxim called ignorantia facti excusat, ignorantia juris non excusat, which means ignorance of fact is an excuse, but ignorance of law is not an excuse. Okay, let us discuss the important case laws pertaining to mistake of fact. Here, the brief facts of the cases are not included in this slide due to the time constraint. Here, the mere result is shown in these slides. In R versus Mr. Tolson, the bona fide belief on reasonable ground is a defense for mistake. It is held by the Privy Council that the bona fide belief on reasonable ground is a defense for mistake. But in R versus Prince, when the mere act is punishable, person doing that act will not be allowed to claim mistake of fact. These are the two important cases which explain about mistake of fact. Just go through these two cases to understand the key issues in the case, the brief facts of the case, etc. But simply I included the mere result. In state of Orissa versus Bagband Barik, it is held that there is a legal compulsion under section 76 and there is a legal justification under section 79. Here the section 76 and section 79 are distinguished. In this case, there is a legal compulsion under section 76. There is a legal justification under section 79. legal compulsion for section 76, legal justification for section 79. In Raj Kapoor versus Lakshman, it was held that if the Central Board of Film Certification sanctions the public exhibition of obscene film, the producer and other connected agencies are not protected under section 79. They are not protected under section 79. Once a certificate is issued by the Board of Film Certification, Central Board of Film Certification, for public exhibition of a film, whether it is an obscene film or non-obscene film, then the producer and other connected agencies are protected under section 79. They are protected under section 79. They are not liable. There is no criminal liability on the producers and other connected agencies. Once the Central Board of Film Certification sanctions or permits a particular film for public exhibition, then the producer and other connected agencies like the technicians, artists and other agencies are not liable, not criminally liable for any offense. Note, believing a human being to be an animal is a mistake of fact. Cutting of overhanging branches of a tree from the neighbor's house is a mistake of fact. It is used as mistake of fact. A soldier fires on a mob by the order of his superior officer in conformity with the commands of law is a mistake of fact. These are the exemptions under section 76 and section 79 of Indian Penal Code 1860. The second one is judicial acts. Sections 77 and 78 describe the judicial acts as an exemption for criminal liability. Act of a judge when acting judicially is an exemption for criminal liability. It is no offense. Act done in pursuant to the judgment or order of the court is an exemption for criminal liability. It is not an offense. According to section 77, the bona fide acts of judicial officers who perform such acts as part of their judicial functions is not an offense. According to section 78, the official acts of person who performs those acts under the instructions of judicial officers is no offense. For example, if a judge pronounces a particular order or a judgment in order to hang a particular person, in order to kill a particular person judicially, is not treated as an offense. Here the judge is performed his judicial functions legally. These are legally recognized judicial functions. Hence it is an exemption for criminal liability. The judge, by his orders or his judgment, he is killing a person indirectly. But this killing does not amount to homicide. It is a judicially accepted homicide. Here he is performing his judicial functions, hence it is an exception as under section 77. If the hangsman hangs such person on the basis of the orders of a judge or judicial officer, then there is no offense. The hangsman has not done any offense. The persons executing the warrant issued by a court or judge, the persons executing the hanging of the prisoners or convicted person, these are not the offences. The receivers acting according to the instructions of judicial officers is no offence. They are protected under this section. Simply the hangsman, persons executing the warrant, receivers, these classes of persons are protected under section 78. Here judges are protected under section 77. Here the persons who are executing the orders of the judges, the persons who are executing the orders or judgments of the judges are protected under section 78. This is the only difference in between section 77 and section 78. The third exemption under Indian Penal Code is specified under section 80 with the name of accident. Accident causes injury to other. Here two important words are used under section 80. They are accident and misfortune. Accident causes injury to another, but the misfortune causes injury as much to himself as to another unconnected with the act. Here accident causes injury to another person, the misfortune causes injury to himself as well as the another person. Here the essential elements of section 80 are enumerated in this slide. The act is not a crime which is done by an accident or misfortune without criminal intention or knowledge. There should be no criminal intention, there should be no knowledge to cause certain harm. There is no knowledge, there is no criminal intention in order to cause certain harm to other person. Here, in doing of a lawful act, by lawful manner, by lawful means, with proper care and caution. If all these essentials are fulfilled, then such commission or omission is treated as accident according to section 80 of Indian Penal Code. There should be some commission or omission, there should be some act that should cause certain harm to other person by accident or by misfortune without criminal intention or knowledge. In doing of a lawful act, the lawful act should be done by the lawful manner, not by unlawful manner. The lawful act should be done by the lawful means, not by unlawful means. The lawful act should be done with the proper care and caution, with proper care and attention. If these conditions are fulfilled, then it is said to be the accident. It is an exemption specified under Indian Penal Code 1860. Let us discuss the illustrations in order to get more understanding regarding section 80 of Indian Penal Code. A is at work with a hammer. The head flies off and kills a man standing by. Here, if there was no want of proper caution on part of A, his act is excusable and not an offence. A workman throws snow from a roof, giving proper warning. A passenger is killed. The death is accidental. It is an exemption. It is an exception, general exception, or it is an exemption for criminal liability. In state of Orissa versus Khosa Ghasi, the accused, a tribal in a forest with bona fide intention, shot an arrow at an animal, but a human being was hit by the arrow and died. The Orissa High Court acquitted the accused on account of accident under section 80 of Indian Penal Code. The fourth exemption or the fourth general exception under Indian Penal Code is necessity or acts done to avoid greater harm. This is specified under 81, section 81. It is called doctrine of self-preservation. Doctrine of self-preservation or doctrine of necessity and compulsion or doctrine of jus necessitatis. It is enshrined in the maxim necessitas non habet legem, which means necessity knows no laws. The essentials of the necessity are enumerated here. The act is not a crime which is done under good faith, without criminal intention or without mens rea. His intention in doing that act should be to cause a smaller harm as to prevent or avoid the greater harm to person or property. Here, nothing is an offense which is done by a person under good faith without mens rea in order to prevent a greater harm to a particular person or property. It is known as necessity, specified under section 81. Let us see few illustrations and important cases. A, in a great fire, pulls down the houses in order to prevent the conflagration from spreading. He does this with the intention in good faith of saving human life or property. Hence, it is treated as a necessity. It is an act done to avoid greater harm. Hence, it is an exception, general exception under Indian Penal Code. In R versus Dudley and Stephens, the ship wreck in high seas, 3 seamen and a boy survived in a lifeboat. There was no food for them. On 20th day, Dudley and Stephens killed the boy. They fed the flesh and blood of such dead body for 4 days. Finally, a ship rescued them. Finally, they prosecuted and tried for murder, but they pleaded the defense of necessity. The Privy Council held that the accused guilty of murder and convicted them on the ground self-preservation is not an absolute necessity. No man has a right to take another's life to preserve his own. There is no necessity that justifies homicide. These are the 3 important principles held by the Privy Council in R versus Dudley and Stephens case in 1884. It is one of the important and famous cases pertaining to the necessity. The 5th exemption or the 5th general exception is specified under sections 82 and 83, that is infancy. It is also known as doctrine of doli in capax. According to section 82, nothing is an offense which is done by a child under 7 years of age. Under 7 years of age. Nothing is an offense which is done by a child under 7 years of age. A child below the age of 7 years is totally exempted from criminal liability. It is presumed that the child below the age of 7 years cannot have the mens rea to commit the offense. If an adult abets a child below the age of 7 years to commit a particular crime, then the adult will be liable as an abettor for such offense. We need to remember this point. Abettor is liable for such an offense, but the child below the age of 7 years is fully exempted from the criminal liability. In next slide I will explain the differences, the key differences, the minute differences in between section 82 and 83. Nothing is an offense which is done by a child above 7 years of age and under 12 who has not attained the sufficient maturity of understanding to judge of the nature and consequences of his conduct on that occasion. Nothing is an offense which is done by a child below the age of 7 years of age according to 82. But nothing is an offense which is done by a child above 7 years and under 12 years of age who has not attained the sufficient maturity of understanding. He can't judge the nature and consequences of his conduct on that occasion. It is also an exemption. Simply, the criminal liability of a child between the age of 8 and 12 years is subject to the proof of mens rea. If there is a mens rea, then there should be a criminal liability. If there is no mens rea, then there is no criminal liability on the child above 7 years of age and under 12 years. Such child is called doli incapax, or incapable of committing the offense. The person or the child who has not attained the sufficient maturity of understanding to judge of the nature and consequences of his conduct on that occasion, such child is called doli incapax, that is incapable of committing the offense. Through this chart we can easily understand the differences between 82 and 83 more elaborately. Section 82 and 83 deals with the concept of infancy. Section 82 deals with the child under the age of 7 years. Section 83 deals with the child above 7 years and below 12 years of age. Here, for the child under 7 years of age, there is absolute immunity. Nothing is an offense which is done by a child under 7 years of age. Hence, there is absolute immunity or absolute exemption for the child under 7 years of age. Nothing is an offense which is done by a child above 7 years to below 12 years, subject to certain conditions. The conditions are: if the child has immature intellect, then there is no criminal liability. Then his act is not treated as an offense. There is no offense. If the condition is the child has mature intellect or mature intellectuality, then it is treated as an offense. Simply, 83 speaks about the child above 7 years but not above 12 years of age, subject to certain conditions. If he has immature intellect, then his act is not treated as an offense. If he is a mature intellect, then his act is treated as an offense. No offense according to section 82. Offense subject to the conditions according to section 83. In Hiralal versus State of Bihar, 11 years child threatened the deceased, and he said he would cut the deceased into pieces. Accordingly, the 11 years child, killed the deceased with a knife. The Supreme Court of India upheld the lower court's decision, and the Supreme Court confirmed the conviction on the ground that the child had sufficient maturity of mind to understand the nature and consequences of his act. The sixth exemption is insanity or mental abnormality, which is specified under section 84 of Indian Penal Code 1860. Here there are certain conditions of insanity, and in this side there are certain kinds of unsound mind or insanity. Wrong must be done by a unsound mind person is incapable to understand the nature of the crime. The act is against the law. If a person is incapable to understand the nature of the crime, if the person is incapable to understand such act is against the law, his act is against the law, then he should be treated as a person of unsound mind. This incapability is due to unsoundness of mind. It is specified under section 84. There are four kinds of unsoundness of mind, namely, there are four kinds of persons of unsound mind, namely idiot, lunatic, non-compos mentis, and disease of mind. Idiots, lunatics, non-compos mentis, who are not capable to understand due to madness or due to intoxicated or drunken condition. The idiot, lunatic, and non-compos mentis and disease of mind are the kinds of unsound mind. Let us discuss the important case laws pertaining to the sixth exception, which is specified under section 84 of IPC. The McNaughton's case is one of the famous cases pertaining to insanity or mental abnormality. In next slide, I will explain the McNaughton's rules of insanity or mental abnormality. In Someswar Ghora versus State of Assam, it was held that legal insanity has to be proved before the court, but not the medical insanity. In Ratalal versus State of Madhya Pradesh, it was held that setting fire to one's own house and clothes without any reason is considered as insanity. In Babudev versus State of Pepsu, a part of Punjab, it was held that insanity as a result of smoking ganja or heavy intoxication making a person thoroughly insane is valid defense under section 84. Here these are the principles laid down in McNaughton's case. These are known as 5 principles of insanity or McNaughton's rules of insanity or rules of insanity. According to the McNaughton's rules enumerated by the Privy Council or held by the Privy Council, every man shall be presumed to be sane. To plead the defense of insanity, the accused must show that he did not know the nature of the act at the time of committing that offensive act. To claim this exception, the accused should prove that he never thought his act to be wrong or contrary to law. Whenever a person under insane delusion, that is a false belief, thinks that other person is in the act of causing his death or kills that other person, can also claim the benefit of insanity. When a person thinks himself to be the lawful executioner of the people and causes the death of a person, he also enjoys the benefit of insanity. The 5 principles are: every man shall be presumed to be sane. It is presumed, the court always presumes that every man, every accused is a sane person, not an insane person. In order to plead the defense of insanity, the accused must prove that he did not know the nature and consequences of the act, the commission or omission done by the accused. He did not know the nature and consequences of his commission or omission at the time of committing the offensive act. He should prove this. The accused should also prove he never thought his act to be wrong or contrary to law. He should also prove that he never thought his act to be wrong, or he never thought his act to be contrary to law, not against law. Whenever a person under insane false belief thinks that the other person is in the act of causing his death, here he is in false belief that the other person is causing his death and he kills the other person, then he can enjoy the benefit of insanity according to the McNaughton's case. The fifth principle is, when a person thinks himself to be the lawful executor of the people and he causes the death of a person, under such circumstances also he can enjoy the benefit of insanity according to principles of McNaughton case. The seventh exception is intoxication or drunkenness, which is specified under sections 85 and 86 of Indian Penal Code 1860. Drunkenness or intoxication is the result of consuming drinks or drugs. A drunken or intoxicated person is incapable of having required mental element to commit an offense. He is incapable of having required mental element. The court presumes that the intoxicated or the drunken person has no mens rea. But we need to understand the kinds of intoxication or drunkenness in order to understand the acts of the person of intoxication or drunkenness, or the acts of the intoxicated or drunkard. There are two types of intoxication or drunkenness. One is voluntary drunkenness or voluntary intoxication. When a person gets intoxicated voluntarily with full knowledge, then he cannot avail the defense. No defense is available to him. No defense is available to him. When a person gets intoxicated without his knowledge, that is through fraud or stratagem of others, and thereby becomes incapable of understanding the nature and consequences of an act, then it is treated as involuntary drunkenness or involuntary intoxication. Involuntary drunkenness or intoxication is a valid defense. But voluntary drunkenness, if a person gets intoxicated voluntarily, if he takes the drink voluntarily with full knowledge, then he cannot enjoy the defense of intoxication or drunkenness. No defense is available. That is the result. If a person gets intoxicated without his knowledge, through by the fraud of the other persons or certain strategies played by the other persons, thereby he becomes incapable of understanding the nature and consequences of an act, then a defense is available to him. It is a valid defense. Voluntary drunkenness, no defense. It is an offense. Any act done by a person under voluntary drunkenness is an offense. Any act done by a person under involuntary drunkenness or intoxication is subject to no offense. It is a valid defense available under Indian Penal Code 1860. Let us discuss few important case laws pertaining to the intoxication or drunkenness. Director of Public Prosecution versus Baird. In this case, the night watchman caught a 13 years old girl. His intention is to rape her. The girl cried and tried to escape from the night watchman, but the night watchman put his cloth into her mouth and he kept his thumb on the throat of the girl. The girl died by suffocation. The Baird, the night watchman, pleaded the defense of intoxication, but the trial court convicted him for murder. The Court of Appeal reduced to manslaughter. However, it is treated as no offense because of voluntary drunkenness. Here the trial court's decision and appeal court's decision is merely same. The only difference is the punishment is reduced, but the appeal court is not released the person. It is not acquitted the person. The appeal court just reduced the punishment. However, both the courts treated that the voluntary drunkenness or voluntary intoxication is an offense. Making any act, making any commission or omission with voluntary drunkenness of a person is a crime. No defense is available to him under such circumstances. Next, the eighth one is consent. It is specified under sections 87 to 91. Section 90 deals with consent known to be given under fear or misconception. Section 87 deals with act not intended to be likely to cause death or hurt by consent. Section 88 deals with act not intended to cause death done by consent in good faith for person's benefit. Section 89 deals with act done in good faith for the benefit of a child or insane person by guardian or by the consent of the guardian. The section 91 deals with exclusion of acts which are offenses independently of harm caused. We need to remember this point. Mere pecuniary benefit is not benefit within the meaning of section 88 and 89 and 92 also. Let us discuss section 90. Consent known to be given under fear or misconception. A consent is not a free consent if it is given under any of the following circumstances. The consent is given by a person under fear of injury, it is not treated as a free consent. If a consent is given by a person under misconception, is not a free consent. Consent by an insane person without knowing the nature of the act is not the free consent. Consent by an intoxicated person without knowing the nature of the act is not a free consent. Consent given by a person under 12 years of age is not a free consent. Section 87 speaks about act not intended to be likely to cause death or hurt by consent. The act is not a crime which is done by a person without having intention to cause death or grievous hurt, without having knowledge that his act likely to cause death or grievous hurt, with the consent given by the victim who suffers harm. The consent must be given by a person above the age of 18 years. The consent may be expressed or implied. Here, nothing is an offense which is done by a person without intention to cause death or grievous hurt, without having knowledge to cause such death or grievous hurt, with the consent given by the victim above the age of 18 years of age. Above the age of 18 years. The victim's age should be above 18 years. The consent may be express consent by words or by certain indications, like the consent may be by way of certain signs. Simply the implied consent is the consent without words. If a person plays a particular game, if he is encountered with a particular damage or death, then it is presumed as he has given implied consent to other person. If a person dies during a cricket match, at the time of playing a particular cricket match or watching a cricket match in the stadium, then it is treated as the person has given the implied consent. If a person gives the consent with the means of writing or by oral means, by saying certain words with his mouth, then it is known as express consent. Here there should be some consent from the victim. The age of the victim should be above 18 years of age, above 18 years. The consent may be expressed or implied without having intention to cause death or grievous hurt, without knowledge to cause death or grievous hurt. If a person causes the death or grievous hurt to other person, then it is used as a defense. It is used as an exemption for criminal liability. All dangerous games and sports or the examples for section 87. Here section 87 protects the players who are involved in the dangerous games and sports. Section 87 deals with the protection of the opposite players in case of death or grievous hurt of a particular player or audience. Next, section 88 deals with the act not intended to cause death done by consent in good faith for person's benefit. The act is not a crime which is done by a person. Act must be done in good faith with the consent of the victim. The consent may be expressed or implied for the benefit of the victim who suffers injury or who takes the risk of suffering such injury without intending to cause the death. This is the difference in between section 87 and 88. Through section 88, the surgeons or doctors, the surgeons are protected. Here, if an act done by a doctor in good faith from the consent of the victim for the benefit of the victim who suffers a particular injury or who takes the risk of suffering such injury is protected. Here the surgeon is protected who is done a particular surgery that results in certain harm, but the surgeon is doing such act in good faith with the consent of the victim for the benefit of the victim who suffers the injury without intending to cause the death, but the result is the death or grievous hurt. The surgeon or doctor is protected. Section 89 speaks about act done in good faith for the benefit of a child or insane person by the guardian, or the act done in good faith for the benefit of a child or insane person by the consent of the guardian. The act is not a crime which is done for the benefit of a person who is a minor under 12 years of age, who is an insane person by the guardian. An act done by the guardian for the benefit of a person whose age is below 12 years, or who is insane person, or any act done by any other person by the consent of the guardian. The consent may be expressed or implied. The act must be done in good faith. Is an exemption. It is an exception, general exception under section 89. Here, the guardians who are doing certain acts with bona fide intention are protected under section 89 of Indian Penal Code 1860. Next one is section 91, which speaks about the consent, especially the exceptions to section 87, 88 and 89, the exclusion of acts which are offences independently of harm caused. Sections 87, 88 and 89 do not extend to acts which are offences independently of any harm. For example, causing miscarriage is an offence even though there is a consent from the prospective mother, unless caused in good faith for saving of the life of such woman. Causing miscarriage is an offence even the doctor gets the consent from the woman. Hence it is an exception for section 88, 89 and 87. Next, the 10th one is acts done, the 9th exception is act done in good faith, which is specified under section 92. The act is not a crime which is done for the benefit of a person who suffers a harm. The act must be done in good faith. There is no time to obtain the consent from the victim or his guardians. The circumstances are impossible to signify the consent. Here, the victim is not in a position to signify his consent. Getting the consent from the victim is impossible under such circumstances. If any act is done by a person, is not treated as an offence under section 92. The protections shall not extend to the following cases: intentionally causing death or attempted to cause death, person doing knows that the act likely to cause death or grievous hurt, voluntarily causing of hurt, for the abatement of any offence, committing of which offence it would not extend. Mere pecuniary benefit is not a benefit within the meaning of section 92. It is the point we need to remember. There must be an act for the benefit of a person. The person should suffer from harm. The act must be done in good faith. There should be no time to obtain the consent from the victim or from his guardians. The circumstances are impossible to signify the consent from the victim or his guardians. These are the conditions for acts done in good faith according to section 92. Let us discuss few illustrations. A surgeon sees a child suffers suffer an accident which is likely to prove fatal unless an operation be immediately performed. There is no time to apply the child's guardian. A performs the operation in spite of the entreaties of the child, intending in good faith the child's benefit. A has committed no offense. Whatever may be the result, A has committed no offense, even though he has not obtained any consent from the victim or from his guardians. Why? Because getting the consent is impossible. He has done this act in good faith for the benefit of the person who suffers the harm. Coming to the second illustration, A is a housewife, A is a house which is on fire with Z, a child. A is in a house which is on fire with Z, a child. People below hold out a blanket in order to protect Z, the child. A drops the child from the top of the house, knowing it to be likely that the fall may kill the child, but not intending to kill the child, and intending in good faith the child's benefit. Here, even if the child is killed by the fall, A has committed no offense. A, with good intention, in order to protect the person from the harm, he drops the child from the top of the house. His intention is to protect the child. Hence, he has good faith. There is no time to obtain the consent from the guardians of the child, and it is impossible to get the consent from the child. Under such circumstances, he drops the child from the top of the house into a blanket in order to protect the child. Hence, he has committed no offense under section 92 of Indian Penal Code 1860. Next, communication made in good faith, which is specified under section 93 of Indian Penal Code 1860. The act is not a crime which is done by a person. A person must make some communication to another. Communication must be in good faith for the benefit of other person, made to inform the truth of a matter. That communication results in harm to other person. Here there should be two persons. One person should communicate the second person. The communication must be in good faith for the benefit of the second person. The communication must be the truth. It is not a lie. It should be a true. It should be the truth of a matter. The communication results in harm to the second person. These are the conditions. These are the conditions for communication made in good faith. Under such circumstances, if there is a harm to the second person, it is presumed as the first person has not committed any offense. Let us discuss this illustration in order to understand section 93 in a better way. A surgeon in good faith communicates to a patient his opinion that the patient cannot live. He cannot live. The patient cannot live. The patient dies in consequences of the shock. A has committed no offense, though he knew it to be likely that the communication might cause the patient's death. A is the doctor or a surgeon in good faith communicates his opinion to his patient in good faith, and the surgeon said that the patient cannot live due to a particular disease. The patient receives such communication and he dies in consequence of the shock. Here, A has committed no offense, he has no intention to cause death to such other person. He has communicated the details of the disease to another person in good faith for the benefit of another person. This communication is made to inform the truth of the matter, but the communication results in the harm to the patient, but it is not treated as an offense under section 93 of Indian Penal Code 1860. The 11th one is act done under compulsion or threat, which is specified under section 94. Nothing is an offense which is done under compulsion or threat. The compulsion or threat must be apprehension of instant death. Apprehension of future death is no excuse. Apprehension of instant death is an excuse, but apprehension of future death is no excuse. Under no circumstances, because of the threat, one must commit murder or waging war against the state. These are the two exceptions for section 94. Under no circumstances, because of the threat, one must commit murder or waging war against the state. Under whatever may be the circumstances, because of the threat, one should not commit the murder and waging war against the state. According to section 94, these are the two exceptions under section 94. According to this section, no punishment to the accused, but the punishment is for the person who placed the accused under the threat. There is no punishment for the accused, but there is a punishment for the person who placed the accused under the threat. Here exception, a person who of his own accord or by the reason of a threat of being beaten joins a gang of dacoits, knowing their character, then he cannot avail the exception specified under section 94 of IPC. The 12th one is acts causing slight harm or trifling acts. Section 95 speaks about acts causing slight harm or trifling acts. This section is based on the legal maxim de minimis non curat lex. De minimis non curat lex. Nothing is an offense by the reason that it causes or that is intended to cause or it is known to be likely to cause any harm, if that harm is so slight that no person of ordinary sense and temper would complain of such harm. For example, pulling the cheeks of a child is not an offense. There is a very slight harm to the child. It is a trifling act. Hence, it is not an offense. Under section 95, pulling the cheeks of a child, taking the pen of another person with an intention to sign and return it back to the same person, it is not an offense. It is very slight harm to the other person. Pinching the ear or nose of a person is not an offense. Using a matchstick with an intention to light a cigarette and to return it back is not an offense. Parting on the child's buttock, parting on the child's buttock is not an offense, but patting on the unknown woman's buttock is not a trifling act, it is an offense. It is an offense. Next, section 13 is about right of private defenses, which is specified from sections 96 to 106. Section 96 speaks about right of private defense. Section 106 speaks about right of private defense against innocent person. Section 98 speaks about right of private defense against intoxicated, insane or youth. Section 97 speaks about right of private defense of body and property. Here 106 speaks about right of private defense against innocent person. 98 speaks about right of private defense against insane, intoxicated or youth. The section 97 speaks about right of private defense of body and property. Section 97 part 1 speaks about right of private defense of body. Section 97 part 2 speaks about right of private defense of property. Here, coming to the right of private defense of body, which is specified under section 97 part 1, when the right of private defense extends to death is specified under section 100. When the right of private defense extends to other than death is specified under section 101. These two are related to right of private defense of the body. The commencement, continuation and end of right of private defense of body is specified under section 102. Here the right of private defense of property is specified under part 2 of section 97. Here, when the right of private defense extends to death is specified under section 103. When the right of private defense extends to other than death is specified under 104 with relation to right of private defense of property. The commencement, continuation and end of right of private defense of property is specified under 104. Exceptions to right of private defense are specified under section 99. Here 96, 97, 98, 99, where is 99? 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106. This is the sequence for studying the concept of private defenses. Now, right of private defenses from section 96 to 106 are listed in this slide. Coming to the first one, section 96. Section 96 speaks about right of private defense. Nothing is an offense which is done in the exercise of right of private defense. It is specified by section 96. See, section 96 speaks about nothing is an offense which is done in the right of private defense. Next, 97. Right of private defense of body and of property. 97. Just now we discussed that. Part 1 is related to body. Part 2 is related to property. Every person has a right against any offense affecting the body or property. Every person has a right against any offense affecting his own body or the body of other person. Body includes his own body, the body of other person. One can exercise the right of private defense whenever there is an offense which is against his own body or the body of the other person. Coming to the property may be mobile or immobile. Every person has a right of private defense against any offense affecting the property of himself or property of any other person, against any act of theft, robbery, mischief or trespass, against the attempts of theft, robbery, mischief or trespass. In R versus Rose, the accused shot and killed his father, whom he believed to be cutting the throat of his mother. The accused was allowed the right of private defense to protect his mother from his father's act. Section 98 speaks about right of private defense against the act of persons of unsound mind, etc. The act is not a crime which is done under the right of private defense against the acts of youth, insane, intoxicated person by reason of any misconception. These are the conditions. Under these conditions, if a person exercises his right of private defense, then it is not treated as a crime. A person can exercise the right of private defense even against the youth, against the insane, against the intoxicated, and by the reason of any misconception. Let us discuss the illustrations in order to understand. Section 98 very elaborately. Judge under the influence of madness attempts to kill A. Judge is guilty of no offense, but A has the same right of private defense which he would have if Judge were sane. A Judge has madness, he attempts to kill A. Judge has the right of private defense. A has also the right of private defense. Both have the right of private defense. One sane person has the right of private defense even against the insane person. A enters by night a house which he is legally entitled to enter. Judge in good faith, taking A for a housebreaker, attacks A. Here, judge by attacking A under misconception commits no offense, but A has the same right of private defense against Judge which he would have if Judge were not acting under misconception. Here both A has the right of private defense by reason of misconception. At the same time, the Judge has also have the right of private defense under section 98. Section 99 speaks about right of private defense against the acts of public servants. Simply, this is an exception for all the right of private defenses. The right of private defense is available against the acts of public servants as follows. If the public servants acts with bona fide intention, then no right of private defense is available to the person. No right of private defense when there is a bona fide act of public servant. There is a right of private defense whenever there is a malified act of public servant. If the public servant does his duty, then the general public cannot use the right of private defense. If the public servant does his duties with malified acts, then the public has right of private defense against the public servant. Let us discuss the important case laws pertaining to exception to the right of private defense. In Dara Singh versus Emperor, the police entered the accused's house at night to arrest him. The accused did not recognize them as police and fired at them. It was held that the accused had a right of private defense. If the public servant has a different uniform, his position would be known to others, and in such circumstances there is no right of private defense. If the public servant is not in his uniform, then the public can use the right of private defense against the public servant. Hence, they cannot recognize him. In Muhammad Ismail's case, it is decided where police officer acting bona fide under the color of his office arrests without authority, person has no right of private defense. Who acts with bona fide intention, the police officer acting bona fide, hence no right of private defense is available to the public. In conversing's case, if the act is lawful, then no defense is provided to the public against the public servants. Section 100 speaks about when the right of private defense of body extends to causing death. Private defense of body extends to causing death. There are 7 cases under IPC when the right of private defense of body extends to causing death. They are assault for death, then a person can use the right of private defense that may extend to causing death. Assault for grievous hurt, assault for committing rape, assault for gratifying the unnatural offense, assault to kidnapping or abduction, assault to wrongful confinement, assault to throwing acid. It is newly inserted. Under these 7 cases, the right of private defense of body extends to causing death. Let us discuss the important case laws. R versus Rose. In R versus Rose, the accused shot and killed his father, whom he believed to be cutting the throat of his mother. The accused was allowed the right of private defense to protect his mother against the acts of his father. In Guligappa versus Siddaramappa, it was decided that the right of private defense can be extended to causing death. First, in 1921, it was decided that the right of private defense can be extended to causing death. In Karamat Hussain versus Emperor, the accused, in order to protect his sister from the merciless beating by her husband, intervened and killed the husband of his sister. It was held that the accused has right of private defense under such circumstances. Next, section 101 speaks about when the right of private defense of body extends to causing any harm other than death. All the other cases except the 7 cases mentioned under section 100, except these 7, all other cases, in all other cases, the right of private defense of body may extend to causing any harm other than death. Next one is commencement, continuation and end of right of private defense of body. The right of private defense of body begins when there is a danger to the body or life. It continues as long as such danger remains. It ends once the danger ends. It ceases once the danger ends. Next, when the right of private defense of property extends to causing death, which is specified under section 103. There are 4 cases under IPC when right of private defense of property, here this is about property, extends to causing death. Robbery, when there is robbery, house breaking by night, mischief by fire in any building. Here building includes tent or vessel which is used as a human dwelling or as a place of custody of property. The 4th one is theft, mischief or house trespass causing apprehension of death or grievous hurt. These are the 4 cases when the right of private defense of property extends to causing death. Here the robbery includes the sections specified sections specified from section 390 to 399. Here house breaking by night is specified under section 446 of IPC. The mischief by fire in any building is specified under section 436 of IPC. In Dara Singh versus Emperor, we have already discussed the brief facts and the result of the Dara Singh versus Emperor case. Next, section 104, when the right of private defense of property extends to causing any harm other than death. All other cases except the 4 cases specified under 103. Under such circumstances, the right of private defense of property extends to causing any harm other than death. Section 105 speaks about commencement, continuation and end of right of private defense of property. The right of private defense of body, this is not body, this is property. The right of private defense of property begins when there is a danger to property. It continues as long as such danger remains to property. It ceases once the danger ends to the property. Next, section 106, which speaks about right of private defense against innocent person. An innocent person mingled with, these are the conditions for section 106. An innocent person mingled with a violent mob. The person exercises his private defense against such mob, resulting in the death of the innocent person. A valid exercise of right of private defense. It is a valid exercise of right of private defense. There should be an innocent person. He should mingle with a violent mob. The person exercises his private defense against such mob, but that resulting in the death of the innocent person. It is a valid exercise of right of private defense. It was held in Yogendra Morarji versus State of Gujarat. Friends, thank you for watching my video. For queries, feel free to contact subhanbande@gmail.com. For latest updates on various law topics, subscribe to my YouTube channel using this link, and you can also have the slides of all my videos from this link. You can download the slides of this video from this link. Thank you and goodbye.